Hello Libras, and welcome to Embrace the Moon Tarot and your March 2018 Tarotscope. So as I was shuffling, I just could feel my energy kind of coming down a little bit. And then whenever I was laying down the cards, as we see here, we have my usual, the four corners of a world, but I've added the strength and the potential obstacle with the current energy. And with this particular reading, and right away it really popped out to me that your current energy is the Queen of Pentacles, but I feel that this isn't a stable Queen of Pentacles. I feel that there is something missing, something lacking currently regarding feeling like you know where it is that you want to nurture so that you feel grounded. So there's a bit of solemn energy that's coming with this. There's a bit of just lacking. Just lacking and solemn is what I'm really kind of picking up very, very heavily. And I feel that this is the predominant energy entering into the month of March. This is not so much the energy that's going to last the entire month, as much as this is the energy that is going to be available or pressing upon you, or you'll be sensing as you enter into the month of March. And so there's just this longing for knowing what it is that you're supposed to be nurturing so that you can ground yourself better and kind of have a better structural balance as far as home and hearth. So I feel like it's not so much that there's been an upset as much as you've just been quite, it's not as bright as you would like it to be. So there's not so much that there's been something specific or huge and tumultuous that has happened, as much as there's just this overall sense of longing that home and hearth was a bit more settled, a bit more stable, a bit more comforting. Not comfortable, comforting. And so this is the energy that I'm sensing that you will be have an awareness of as you enter into the month of March. Something that'll be kind of pressing upon you, and something you'll have to kind of work through, wade through, kind of trying to decipher. Okay, what it is that I definitely looking at? What is it that makes me feel like I'm lacking in comfort or being comforted? That I can make the changes necessary so I can nurture what it is that makes me feel more stable, more solid, more at home. And again, the key word isn't comfortable, the key word is comforting. So it's a subtle difference, but it's less subtle than it sounds. And that when we're comfortable, there's the context of being cozy, and there's also the context of being comfortable and not wanting to shake things up and move out of whatever your comfort zone is. And that's not the scenario we're dealing with. This is more of comforting, as in that hug, making you feel like it's the sort of stability that really makes you feel at home, makes you feel comforted, and knowing that when all else may crumble or fall, at least you have this. And so this is kind of the energy that you're going to be possibly sensing as you enter into the month of March. You just want the comforting aspect to be a little bit hugging. Just all I can picture is just a big old hug. So that's sort of the energy that I am sensing as you are entering the month of March. And this is reflected somewhat in the mental aspect. We have the Chariot. So your mind, as you're going through this and being aware of and sensing these energies, the mind is going to be kind of wrangling with this concept of control. And I feel like the problem is that there's too much of a struggle of trying to be too forceful with the amount of control. Trying to hold on too tightly to old ways. Trying to hold on too tightly to what has worked in the past, even though you know that it's not working now. Whatever that may mean to you. But this is the ultimate struggle. And this is going to arise when you are pressed on about this sense of comforting that you're going to be looking for. So when you become more and more aware of that longing inside of what you would like the home and hearth of a comforting hug to equate, along with that comes the balancing it and kind of analyzing it in your head and going back and forth and seeing what that may or may not mean to you. And the more you kind of break it down and analyze it, the more you're going to have a bit of a struggle with trying to decipher what you should let go and what you want to let go. Or I should say, you know what you should let go, but there's going to be desire not to let it go. There's going to be desire to try to still make it work, make it merge, make it kind of somehow function together. If you have to, push the puzzle pieces together to make it look like it fits, that's kind of what you're hoping you can do. And so there's just going to be this huge battle with control in the mind. And ultimately, you'll come to the conclusion that you need to come to. But there's going to be a lot of thought processes that you're going to have to sort of wade through. And I feel like it's going to be more towards the second week of March, probably more towards the end of the second week, where you'll start to kind of really get a bit more clarity and feel empowered with what it is that you really do feel at this point where that you need to let go and where you need to kind of go with the flow. But it's definitely going to be heavy on your mind. In the physical realm, in the personal world, we have the Five of Swords, and I feel like this is just reflecting, resonating what's already being tapped into, and this is the sense of loss. So as you are going through this process, and I feel this is tied in very much within the mental, as you're struggling with this, as you are tapping into this whole concept of what you want the comforting hug of home and hearth to equate, there's going to be a sense of loss on some facet as a result of it, that's going to cause that struggle, because loss is always hard. Even when we tie ourselves or bond ourselves, it's not necessarily someone. Sometimes it's something, sometimes it's scenarios, sometimes it's lifestyles, sometimes it's a schedule. It's really hard to change because we get kind of set in our ways, and there's something comforting about that. And so along with this, really trying to define that comforting hug of a warm home and hearth, there's shifts that you're going to start realizing that are going to need to take place for you to get to that level. But when you recognize those shifts, that's when you're going to recognize things that you're going to feel like you're going to have to let go, release, and what have you. And that's where the sensation of loss, and it's not going to be an actual loss as much as you work through this process in your mind, you're going to start kind of checking things off that you realize, that's going to feel a little bit like a loss. So, it's, you can kind of equate it to maybe you have a job promotion. The job promotion is going to give you more benefits, maybe slightly more money in the process. But the biggest thing is the benefits, it's health benefits or something along that line. And as a result of it, it's something that you really want to chase after. And you realize that as a whole, it fits in pretty well because your schedule's not going to change, but except for one night. And that one night is Tuesday nights. Now you're going to be required to stay at the office a couple hours longer. Tuesday nights, taco nights with the family. It's a bit of a sacrifice. It's not a huge loss, but when it makes up a certain specific part of what defines our world, it can feel like a loss. And so it makes us kind of, really weigh the consequences of our choices and our decisions. And so it's kind of along that concept as far as what it is that when you are considering this, home and hearth and considering control and going with the flow, you're going to be recognizing a few things that you're probably going to have to change that are going to feel like a little bit of a loss. Again, in the end, I feel very much so that as you process this information, as you start to kind of really look at it and weigh it, and you start to weigh what it is that you really want to be that comforting hug of a warm home and hearth stability in and of yourself and in and of your world, you're not going to struggle in the end with making the decision that that fits right. There'll be a struggle in the process because that's how we process these things. But eventually you'll get to a point where you'll recognize that this is a loss, but the gains actually pay out so much better. And I can remedy this somehow. I can fix this somehow. I can make it so that this loss isn't a complete sacrifice, or somehow we can, substitute it or come up with something better. And the shift and the expansion then changes Sometimes the end results offer us equations that actually give bigger rewards than what we are already settled into. So these are all things that I feel that, again, the first part of the month you're really going to be battling with, and when you come somewhere around predominantly around the end of the second week is when things are going to really start to kind of part ways, and you're going to really start to have a bit more clarity and see things a bit more clear and really understand what it is that you truthfully and honestly know, that it really feeds your soul and gives you that comforting hug that you're seeking. Emotionally, we have the Ten of Swords, and this is about release. This seems to be your theme for this particular month. And the struggle is going to be, as I've already stated, the first 2 weeks is just going to be coming to the conclusion of knowing what it is that you are ready to walk away from. And recognizing by releasing and letting go, you now have an open palm to receive whatever it is that you need to receive. So this feels a bit more in the upright position of the Ten of Swords as far as something being done and over with and being able to actually release and walk away. This energy shifts from a struggle in the first 2 weeks of the month to actually things coming together, more clarity, more understanding, as I already stated. This is kind of reinforcing what I've already said. And towards the end of the month, really coming to a conclusion, really coming to a resolution, coming to a good clarity as far as what it is that you are willing to release and walk away, knowing, as I stated, that when you let go of something, you now have an open palm to receive whatever it is you need to receive. So the reason why this is in the relationship aspect or the emotional aspect, this is the emotional aspect. So the reason why it sits in the emotional aspect is because of the ties that we have emotionally with a lot of these things. Again, a lot of the things that we have created that make up the world as we know it, not just, as I stated, career, family, relationships, and what have you. It's also schedules, it's the little things. I mean, a lot of times that's that cliche saying, it's the little things that make up life, or something along that line. So it's the little things, and we get emotionally attached to it because we created those little things with an emotional impact or an emotional backing. There's usually an emotional reason why some of the things that we've squeezed into our schedule has been squeezed into our schedule. So the emotional connection to some of the changes that you're going to be struggling with, and you're going to feel that you're losing, you'll get to a point where you will be able to let go, because you'll realize that bigger, better things are going to be falling into the palms of your hand once you finally open them up and let go and empty them for receiving. The energy continues to flow as we have in the spirit or passion aspect. I have the Five of Coins, and it's just, again, resonating with that sensation of struggling with feeling like you're at a moment of scarcity. And I feel that this scarcity is, again, connected with the emotion and how it ties into your physical world. And that Queen of Pentacles in the beginning that I was talking about, it definitely ties into your emotional status. That feeling of wanting a comforting hug from the concept of a stable home and hearth. And so as you process all of this, and you're doing that internal mental battle as far as trying to gain control versus trying to go with the flow, and really considering what it is that you're losing versus gaining, and really being able to finally recognize the emotional attachments and what they mean to you, how you can justify or make up for it, and therefore be able to release it. The passion is going to feel a bit of an impact. So there's going to be a slight feeling of scarcity because you're not feeling quite as grounded as you may have been prior to this beginning of this month. And the scarcity feels very much emotionally based, but because of the emotional impact, when we are starting to feel a bit waned emotionally, that impacts our passion, that impacts our drive. And then therefore it can also impact how we feel grounded, and vice versa. It doesn't necessarily have to be in that order. But whenever we're unsettled in this aspect, it resonates throughout the other parts of our lives if we don't address it, or if we don't reach clarity on how to address it. And also, when we're going through the process of addressing it. I've experienced this myself actually, where you are, I've been through that moment where I've been processing information and processing changes and what have you, and you just get kind of overwhelmed with a sense of scarcity. And it can be actual scarcity, but then once you go through it and you get to a point where you can look back and in hindsight, you can recognize how scarce it actually was and how much you were actually taken care of, or the universe had your back during that process. It's just as you were processing the emotion and trying to figure out and clarify what it is that you wanted to desire and where it is that you wanted to go, it was hard to factor in how well you were taken care of and how much scarcity actually existed. So this is just going to be another element of how the month of March has a potential of going for you. And this is not to bring you down. This is just to let you know all of these feelings that you're feeling are validated. Yes, you're at a point where you feel like you need to reevaluate. And yes, you are at a point where you want to kind of wade through it, figure out what means the nearest and dearest to you, and figure out what it is that you want to let go of. And once you get past this, all the puzzle pieces will fit together as they are meant to fit together. Not so much as they have been forced to, but as they are meant to fit together. So with that comes balance, harmony, and eventually abundance. So you'll get to that point where the passion and the drive will kind of come back into force. But the key is going to be really connecting to what it is that is going to nurture that comforting sense of hug through stability at home and hearth. Your strength for the month is Eight of Cups, release. Release, release, release. This is really, March is a month of release for you. If you really want to make March a great month for yourself, tune into yourself, tune into your higher self, have a good conversation about your hopes, desires, and dreams. Be open, be honest, lay it all out, whether you want to hear what you have to say to yourself or not. You can always walk away whenever the conversation's over if you want to, but the key is, if you're really wanting to know what it is that'll give you that comforting hug that you seek, have a good, honest, open conversation with yourself, and then be ready to really look at what it is that you need to release and release. Walk away. If you need to go through the emotions of mourning whatever it is that you have to let go, there's nothing wrong with that. We're meant to experience those emotions just as much as we are meant to experience the moments of happiness. So if there are decisions that's going to make you feel that you have a loss, that you're going to have to let go and you're going to have to walk away from and be a bit mourning in the process, you can do that. But handle it in a healthy way. Recognize it for what it is. Label it. Feel it. Work with it. Flow with it. Don't struggle against it. Move with it so that you can get through to the other side and start to better define what it is that gives you that comforting hug and a warm home and hearth that you are seeking. The obstacle that you have for the month is number 6, the Lovers. And to me, this is about connections. I feel like as you are going through this process, the one person that you need to be your support, you're not going to be turning to because either you don't want to burden them, or you have just gotten to a point where you're processing it so much that you feel like you have to process this on your own. Like this is your burden to carry. This is your struggle. These are your emotional issues. This is whatever it is, it's yours and yours alone. And once you get through it, it'll be okay. But you don't feel like you should be laying it out on this person who is the one person who's always been your support and could be and should be your support through this process as you're processing this emotion. So the lack of connection that you know is available but you're not taking for whatever reason, that is your obstacle. Along with that is when the increased emotions of release and how much that can bog down or weigh down on you start to really increase, you might have a tendency to get a bit of reactory towards that person. So instead of responding, the heightened emotion is going to have you a bit on edge as you're working through this. So you might get a little snappier than you normally would be. So that is going to have a potential of decreasing the connection with the one person who could actually help you connect with what it is that you need to connect with to make this all get the puzzle pieces, the correct puzzle pieces put together correctly to make the bigger picture that you want to realize by the end of March. So reach out to them, talk to them, be honest with them, allow them to feel the emotions with you, allow them to be present with you and for you, and just be mindful whenever you're in a conversation. If you do get in a conversation and if emotions are a bit high, just be mindful of your emotions and how you are expressing them, just so you don't accidentally express them in a way that you don't really mean to. All right, so that is all I have for you for this month, but I'm going to go ahead and pull another card to kind of wrap it up, bring it all together, or maybe give you a mantra. Let's see what the universe has to deliver for you. Late apricot, release your fears. This really is the month of releases. And here's the thing, releasing can be so healing, so beneficial, and it can really help us grow and expand. The process isn't always nice. I read this thing on Instagram one time where it said, this too shall pass. It may pass like a kidney stone, but it will pass. So if you're feeling a bit like that's what's going on, just realize and remember that this will pass and just go with it, release it, flow with it, but release your fears. The key word is release, but release your fears is tied in with that. So your mantra is to release your fears. So when you're getting overwhelmed by the emotions, when you're getting kind of caught up in that internal struggle, when you're getting caught up in the feeling and sensation of really pondering the losses and really struggling with the release, just remember, release your fears. And if you have clothes that are in this color and you're having a bad day, maybe wear this particular color to kind of be a memory, a reminder that's present with you that whole entire day. All right, Libras, that is all I have for you for this month. I hope it's a great month for you. Make it a great one, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.